Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for your patience. We are now going to hear docket 1326, St. Charles Sportsman's Club, special exception for an outdoor rifle and pistol range. At this time, we'll hear the county staff's presentation.
Good evening, Board of Appeals members. My name is Tatiana Anderson, and I'm with the Planning Division. Tonight, I'm introducing for your consideration a request from the St. Charles Sportsman Club property. They are petitioning for a special exception, docket 1326, to develop a rifle and pistol archery and war games range per use number 4.02290. The property is located in the 10th election district. It's zoned RC, which is rural conservation. Rural conservation. It is approximately 322 acres, and it's located off of Smallwood Church Road, and that's approximately 800 feet southeast of Maryland Route 222. The property is currently predominantly forested, and it has an existing gravel road and 2 gravel parking lots with about 10 spaces each. At the time of the staff report, there were no complaints from the public received. However, late today we have received one letter in opposition from a law firm, and you have been given a copy of that for the record. I also have a written testimony from another citizen that lives in the area that I'll be submitting to you in a moment as well. Basically, that's the extent of my report to you right now. All the other information that we have is in the staff findings within the staff report for your review. If you do have any questions for me, of course I will be here to answer any, but based on the information that we had at the time of our review, the board, if you decide to approve the request, it is with the recommendations that we have within the report, and our report has not changed. The applicant is here to make a more detailed presentation for you at this time.
Okay. I have just a quick question, if I could.
Sure.
In your report, you call out there are 3 things that are required. So this is a permissible use in this property.
Yes.
There are 3 requirements that needed to be met. Could you just summarize whether you found that it did meet those requirements or did not meet those requirements?
Yes, sure. Under the article, the minimum standards for use, section 4.02290, rifle and pistol range, there are 3 areas that need to be met. Those areas are that the adjacent areas be predominantly undeveloped or occupied by low-intensity land uses such as agriculture. B was the facility shall be constructed in such a manner as to eliminate all danger to people, property from flying projectiles. And C, war games will be permitted for a period of 1 year only and subject to renewal. The property application that was submitted has met all of these requirements. We reviewed it with all the proper government agencies, and we do believe that it has met all the requirements.
Okay, and at some point in your report, I saw mention that there was commercial property adjacent, and I'm not clear what that commercial property is because it looked pretty desolate from the overhead.
Can you tell me which page you're referring to?
Let's see here. It said it was...
Let me see. Hold on. Let me...
neighborhood... Well, maybe I misread it. So this is basically a forested area. There's no commercial activity going on adjacent to this. Is that correct?
It's predominantly forested. There's some to the north of the property. There are some residential areas, but there's still a buffer between that property and the residential properties, okay, which is forested as well at the back portion of those properties.
The landfill is adjacent. That might be the commercial property.
Right.
I was thinking. Okay. Mm-hmm. The old landfill. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In regards to the letter from Scott Law Group, I believe that came in.
Yes.
I believe the board does take issue with that letter. It was delivered, I believe, after the start of the hearing. Nobody had time to read it. Do we have any discussion on that?
I'd love to hear that testimony. Is there anyone here from Scott Law that will put that in the record in person? Well, we can't receive a letter after the beginning of this hearing. That's not fair, I don't think.
Well, just to clarify, I believe the record was delivered to the county this afternoon. Yeah.
About what time?
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay.
I called Mr. Scott, the author of the letter, and left a message for him about 4:30. I didn't hear back from him today.
So if he's here tonight, he can testify. Otherwise,
yeah, the letter has been offered. You can receive it, as evidence. You can not receive it as evidence. If you receive it, you can accord it whatever weight you see fit. Yeah. If the author's not here, you have a range of options. I don't think those need to be dealt with necessarily at this particular moment, but you will have a range of options.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Any questions for county staff?
Just the one thing jumped off the page on your on the staff recommendations, page 6.
Okay.
In point 1, you recommend that we require they come back annually to reapprove the war games. And I know that's kind of one of those terms that probably has greater implications than I'm imagining. So, what does that mean? And why do we need to have them come back every year for that?
Well, that's a requirement of the zoning ordinance. I'm sure they put it in there just to make sure if anything did happen within a year's time that they would have provision to make some changes if necessary, and it was to give the county more latitude in what goes on the property.
Yeah, and my understanding of the term war games is that it's not necessarily a war game that a layman like me might think, but it could include some activities that aren't a full war game. Is that right?
I'm not certain. I'll let the applicant answer that question.
Okay.
I'm not sure of
I'll
the
direct it to them. I just thought I'd get your take. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, very good. I'll ask our legal counsel if we have sufficient notification for this case. We do. Okay. At this time, I will invite the applicant to come forward. Before I let you guys get going, I believe we have a board member who needs to recuse himself in this case.
thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm a member of the St. Charles Sportsman's Club, so I will not be voting on this case, but I'll stand and be a fly on the wall.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is David Martinez. I'm an attorney at Jenkins Law Firm here in La Plata, representing St. Charles Sportsman's Club on this special application use. As a preliminary matter, I'm unfamiliar with the board's procedures in regards to protests of application, but my request would be that whomever has the signs that are in the front row that are showing up on the TV, if they want to make a statement, of course they're welcome to do so, but I would request that they be removed.
I have not seen a sign in the front row. If there's anyone holding signs in the front row, I'll ask our legal counsel how.
They're right over here, Mr. Chairman.
There are. Oh, they are. They need to go, or how does that play in?
I think they would be allowed. They're not causing any problems, any disturbance. They're very passive, but it would be up to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, it would be up to me. I'm going to actually leave this to some discussion with the board. What do you guys think?
Just so I can just clarify.
Yeah.
It's just that this is a public hearing. It is being televised. So in essence, you're affording anybody who's in opposition to this application, being able to have their opposition heard for the entirety of the hearing.
I agree. Okay, I agree with that. All right. I'll allow request that the signs be removed at this time. If we need to have county staff grab those, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Martinez, I need to make you aware that we have only 3 voting board members this evening. We have one that did not show and another one that has recused themselves. In that case, we would need all 3 to be in favor of the application for it to be approved. So I'm giving you the option to proceed or continue the case at this time.
Proceed.
Mr. Chairman, we'll proceed.
Okay, very good.
By way of brief, by way of brief opening, as Ms. Anderson has indicated, St. Charles is seeking the proposed special exception use for a firearms and archery range. They are not seeking anything to do with war games. It's just under the table of permissible uses. That is the intended use that it's qualified under. So that is not something that they are seeking to use the property for. As was stated, this parcel is approximately 322 acres, RC zone, are the surrounding properties. As the board has probably seen from the diagram that's up there, the plat that's up there that Mr. Erdman will testify to, you essentially on the east and south sides have 5 parcels. The total acreage is roughly 575 acres. To the north, you have 9 parcels, large lot residential. And then to the west, you have those other parcels on the other side of Smallwood Church Road are also large lot residential. The zoning is appropriate in the zoning ordinance for this type of use within this type of zone subject to the special exception. As was indicated by prior counsel in the prior application, a special exception zone, the zoning for a special exception, there are inherent uses that might not be as nice as everyone would like. However, the legislature has determined that in spite of those inherent maybe detriments, that this type of use is allowed in this type of zone, and then it falls upon yourselves to determine if there's any adverse impact that's greater in this particular location than somewhere else. The gun range that St. Charles is seeking to construct would basically be a 10-station shooting range as well as an archery range in the footprints that are allowed within this property. I'm sure that the members have reviewed the staff report and can see that this property is subject to a Maryland DNR conservation easement. As a result, it's fairly limited in the amount of disturbance that can occur on this property. However, this club, for the use they're intended, they don't need to disturb very much. And also submitted subsequently to our application was a letter from Mr. McCarthy, Maryland DNR, that indicates the club has the conditional use to be able to move forward with this application. Of course, as set forth in the conditions on the report, Maryland DNR is still going to have to sign off once we get to the site plan and development stage that, yes, this in fact is approved by Maryland DNR. And if it's not, then regardless of that the use has been approved by this board, they won't be able to move forward with their intended use. Just for the record, this is Maryland, the table of permissible uses 4.02.290, as well as the appropriate sections of the Charles County zoning ordinance. I have 3 witnesses I intend to call tonight, seated directly to my right, Ms. Marlene Smith of St. Charles Sportsman, Mr. James Erdman of Ben Dyer and Associates, and also Mr. Frank Frew is present here. And I'll be calling him as a witness to submit testimony in support of our application. With that, if there's nothing further, I would just call my first witness.
Okay.
Ms. Smith?
Okay.
Does Ms. Everett have to swear? Oh, Mr.
Yeah, I'll swear.
Hanna will swear.
If you could. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can I have your name and address for the record, please?
Marlene Smith,
No. I'm sorry. Please continue.
St. Charles Sportsman's Club, 4045 Renner Road in Waldorf, Maryland.
Okay, sir.
I'm going to belay that. Now that she's sworn, I'm going to have her testify in a little
Very
bit.
good.
But I'm going to have Mr. Erdman testify first.
All right.
If I could ask you to swear him, please.
Sure. Sir, do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
It's James L. Erdman with Ben Dyer Associates, town of La Plata. You have a leak.
Yeah, see that.
I don't know if somebody wants to do something.
We're getting wet here in a minute.
Mr. Erdman, what is your occupation?
I'm a registered landscape architect.
And how long have you been employed in this line of work?
I've been employed doing this work for over 28 years.
And did your office, Ben Dyer and Associates, prepare the report in support of the application for the special exception for which we're here this evening?
Yes, we did.
And did you also prepare the plans that were submitted as part of the application that have been shown by staff?
Yes, we did.
And can you please describe for the board the property upon which St. Charles wants to put this use?
Sure. I would like to use the exhibit. They've given me control of a pointer, so if I could. To recap, the property is zoned RC, Rural Conservation Zone. It is well over 300 acres in size, and the property is forested except for a right-of-way that goes through the property for electric. The property has, in fact, in the past been forested. It's now a natural regeneration in areas. It does have a conservation easement, as was explained by Mr. Martinez. To give you a little orientation, Smallwood Church Road.
Sir, if I could have you speak into the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Do I need to repeat anything?
No.
Okay. Smallwood Church Road. This is the access that we're proposing into it, utilizing the existing access ways that exist. This area right here, the small rectangular area here that's surrounded by all of this forested area, that small rectangular area is the area of the firing range that is proposed. There's another small rectangular area off to this side. That is the area for the proposed archery range. We are limited to the amount of clearing that we can do because of that DNR restriction, and we are keeping all of our forest conservation and our impacts limited to just what is needed to clear for the firing range, which someone else later will be talking about that. As I indicated, we are centrally located. We have approximately 960, almost 1,000 feet to the property line to the east. We have well over 1,300 feet to the property to the north. To the west, from the firing range, it's about 2,500 lineal feet, including the fact that there is the roadway. From the archery range, it is about 1,000, and then going south, it's about 1,000 feet or more to the back property line. What you have is you have surrounding properties, you have large lot, residential on either side, on the west and the north. You have very large lot properties to the east and to the south.
Mr. Urban, in fact, that property to the east, that large lot, that's the approximate 250-acre parcel, isn't it? The one with the closest proximity there to the proposed range site?
That is correct.
And then further to the south, that's the former Pisgah dump site, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Mr. Urban, can you also just describe for the board the topography of the parcel?
The topography, the site does have relief to it. It has several streams and wetlands in it. We have identified them per mapping. You can see that they encompass the county's required resource protection zone. At the time of final engineering plans, there'll be additional work and identification in these areas, but the only areas that are in the immediate vicinity are related to the existing driveway that goes back to the area where the range is proposed. There are no environmental features in that area where any of the either the archery or the range is proposed.
Mr. Urban, is it your opinion that the surrounding properties that you were just discussing with the board are predominantly undeveloped or occupied by low-intensity land uses?
I would agree, yes.
And in fact, those are all RC zoned properties, is that correct?
That is correct.
If this proposed use is approved by the board, can you just describe, some of the additional steps we'll actually have to go through before you can actually have this use on the site?
Sure. As we understand, this first step is for a use approval. Granting of a special exception does not relieve us from the obligation to fulfill all the other ordinances and requirements of the county, including zoning site plans, development services permits, sediment erosion control approvals, and as it's stated in the report, also dealing again with DNR as it relates to the footprint impacts of the proposed use and their agreement of the easement on the site.
And Mr. Urban, to the best of your knowledge, is the applicant intended to follow those courses of action as required?
That is correct.
Can you please describe for the board how you feel that through this use the club is in accordance with the county comprehensive plan?
Sure. The comprehensive plan outlines that the county should support private recreational opportunities that expand opportunities throughout the county. That's actually stated within the comprehensive plan.
Is it your opinion that the proposed use is in compliance with the county regulations for such a use in the RC zone?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions for Mr. Erdman about this portion of it. Of course, I'll have other testimony from Ms. Smith and Mr. Frew, but if there's any questions at this time for Mr. Erdman.
Any questions? No? No, it's not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I would call Mr. Frank Frew to come up. If you could
Yes, sir.
swear.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening, sir.
I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Can I have your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Frank Frew. The address of the club is 4045 Renner Road, Waldorf.
Thank you.
Mr. Frew, what's your relationship to St. Charles Sportsman's Club?
I'm president of the organization.
In addition to your role as president of the organization, can you describe for the board any type of firearm certifications or trainings you've undergone?
Yes, sir. I'm a competitive shooter. I was NRA certified as an instructor in 1968. I'm currently nationally certified as a 4-H shooting sports instructor. I am also a Maryland hunter safety instructor. I teach 4-H in Charles County and teach nationally on the 4-H level. I have other certifications. I'm an NRA range safety officer, and I currently shoot competitively.
Mr. Frew, can you just briefly describe for the board, in case they're unfamiliar with St. Charles Sportsman, what the club is and its history in the county?
Okay. Basically, the club was formed in 1972. We relocated to a Piney Church Road location in 1974. We maintained that location as an outdoor shooting facility for approximately 45 years. During that time, we managed, posted, and monitored all the undeveloped land that St. Charles Properties had through a partnership relationship. That was approximately 3,000 acres that we managed for them, and in turn, we had hunting privileges on that property. During those 45 years, we had no incidences or complaints about our operation whatsoever. We partner with the Charles County Sheriff's Office. We partner with 2 Boy Scout troops. We partner with 3 of the 5 county ROTC units that use our facilities for marksmanship training, and we share instructors with them. We host and supply instructors for several Maryland hunter safety teams, and they use our facilities for their practical training. We provide training to the public through ladies' nights. We have a youth program where we invite the public youth in on the first Sunday of every month to learn how to shoot a .22 target rifle. We supply the equipment, the training, and certified instructors. Excuse me. As I said, we partner pretty closely with the Sheriff's Office and have for a long time. We've hosted wounded warriors at our facility, and we intend to do so as long as we have the capability of doing so. We'd like to sustain all those programs. An outdoor facility would greatly enhance our ability to do so, especially with Boy Scout camping areas and things of that nature. So again,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Again, for 45 years in our old location, we had no incidences and no complaints as St. Charles expanded and grew. Pardon me, I'm getting over a sinus infection here.
If you're done, then I'll
Okay.
ask you the next question.
We
But if you're not,
currently
keep
have,
going.
I can speak a little further about the size of the club. We currently have approximately 300 members in total. They have varying interests. Some shoot indoors, some hunt, some shoot outdoors, some do a mixture of all three. Certainly not all of the club does any one function of that nature, so it's not like we plan on having 300 people descend on this site. We lost our outdoor range due to the rapid expansion of the residential development in St. Charles communities, which is why we're no longer there. And we're here seeking your approval to get a new outdoor facility so we can continue to work closely with the community as we have for the last 45 years.
Thank you, Mr. Frew. Directing your attention to the incident application for the special exception, Can you describe for the board how the club intends to construct specifically the shooting range and how it intends to eliminate the danger to people and property from firing projectiles?
Well, basically, we would use current range construction techniques. It would consist of a three-sided bermed trench, for lack of a better term. We will use existing topography to minimize the excavation required. The berming will be high enough to contain any projectiles. We'll basically be shooting into a big U-shaped bowl, and we would have approximately a 10-point range, which would fit within the existing requested footprint. The plan eventually would be to have a covered shooting point, which would just consist of building a roof over the shooting area, an open building with no sides or anything like that, just to provide shade for the shooters. Everything else would be within the existing approved footprint for the clearing area that we are proposing and asking for.
Can you describe how the existing condition of the property would also benefit you in mitigation of constructing the range? In other words, the current topography and nature of the property.
As you can see, we've had the civil engineering folks pick the best spot, centrally located, and we're going to use the existing topography to our advantage as much as possible, as I said, to minimize any disturbances or excavation that we do have to do. So we also plan on topping the berms with trees, which will help mitigate any exiting sound. So we plan to use current existing construction techniques for ranges.
Can you describe for the board how the club intends to maintain safety protocols at the range?
The property will be secured by a lock gate. We have already drafted the first stages of an operating procedure for the facility. We will require an on-site certified range safety officer anytime anyone was there shooting. We've already put together a draft risk management plan, which would address the usages of the range, the basic guidelines for that purpose, which will be tailored when we get more detail on what we're building and how we hope to use it. That risk management plan includes operating procedures, measures to be taken in the event of any kind of an incident, whether it be personal injury or tornado or flood or lightning or anything like that. And it's a step-by-step punch list that the RSO, range safety officer, can refer to in any situation. It includes down to the fact of appointing someone to call 911, having someone go to the gate to bring in whatever emergency equipment or services are requested or required, bring them to the site, and so on and so on. So it's a fairly comprehensive risk management plan, which will be tailored once we get more details.
Mr. Frew, I'm going to show you what I'm going to ask the clerk to mark as exhibits, an original and then courtesy copies for the board members. I guess I don't need 5 tonight, but I'm going to send them up anyway. Mr. Frew, the first thing I'm just going to show you, does this accurately describe the history that you want submitted to the board? Can you just take, you don't have to discuss it as accurate. Okay, I'm going to offer that. And then what I'm handing you now that I'm going to ask Mark B. Applicant's Exhibit 2, is that a copy of the actual management plan you were speaking of?
Yes,
all right.
It's a copy of the draft risk management plan.
Mr. Frew, can you just describe for the board also the proposed archery range, the intended use of it, size of it, and the protections in place?
Excuse me. The archery range initially will be a bullseye target range, maybe 4 targets wide, so there'll be approximately 4 shooting lanes. Our plan right now is to make it approximately 35 yards in length. It'll be protected on all 3 sides in a similar fashion to the outdoor range, and have an open shooting area. It'll be well posted, as will the rifle range. That active shooting range, do not enter. We mark our boundaries with paint and signs, and we will try to make anybody aware that's approaching any of the parts of the property toward the center that they're entering places they need not try to be.
Mr. Clark, procedurally, I guess I've offered those two exhibits 1 and 2 into evidence. Do I need a ruling if those have been received or not?
Would the board like to receive the exhibits?
I would like to offer those two exhibits into the record, and I'm asking for clarification if they've been received or not.
Yes, they have been.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions for Mr. Frew, and I'll turn it over to yourself and the board for questions for Mr. Frew.
Sure. The biggest concern I think with a lot of these outdoor ranges like this is obviously the range itself, the safety of the range. Are there going to be baffles? Every 20 yards or so, there's a baffle to catch any ricochets and that sort of thing. I know that we've heard some cases before that they had proffered that they were going to use that technique. Is that something you're planning to do?
That is a method of construction. We plan on building the roof over the shooting area to provide an initial first baffle.
Okay.
And then we're going to determine the height of the berms, and that'll be determined by the length of the range. But right now, there's no current plan to make a row of baffles.
Okay, but the roof is going to be, if approved, the roof would be constructed immediately upon the construction of the range, or is that where it comes?
As soon as possible.
Okay.
Yes.
Immediately.
Well, as soon as possible, I think this was the answer, but I'm not sure that that satisfies my question.
Yeah.
Okay. I would hesitate and say probably before shooting is done, the roof will be completed.
Okay.
Before shooting starts.
That's better. That's acceptable. Thank you,
Is that
sir.
a better answer?
Yes, sir. The other question that I had, obviously, a lot of lead going down range.
Yes, sir.
And I know that obviously there's some sort of a containment system within the range, within the bowl, to catch any lead that might leach into the groundwater, that sort of thing.
Correct.
Can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
I believe the current technology is to make the backstop out of sand, so it captures the lead very easily and contains it,
Okay.
so it doesn't splatter. And we plan on monitoring that operation as we go.
Very good. Any other questions?
I have a question. What are the hours and days of operations that you plan on having this open?
Ms. Green, I don't want to jump ahead. That's a perfectly reasonable question. Ms. Smith is actually going to testify to that. If you can hold that for next witness,
Yeah,
that'd be
absolutely.
great.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Is there any limitation? I have one more question. Any limitation on types of firearms?
Types of firearms? Yes, ma'am. We currently have limitations that we had on our old range. We will carry them over. On our old range, we did not allow 50 caliber and above. So it's your average hunting calibers and pistol calibers predominantly.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay.
If there's no further questions, I'll call Ms. Smith, who's already been sworn.
Yep. Go ahead.
And you've already given your name and address.
Yes, I did.
Mrs. Smith, if the proposed use of this property is granted, can you please describe the steps? It's kind of following up on Mr. Frew there. Please describe the steps you're going to take to ensure environmental compliance.
We are going to routinely monitor the property, and we will comply with all state and federal laws.
You've heard Mr. Frew briefly talk about the access to the property. Can you just comment on that a little further of how you're going to how the club is going to control access, one to the shooting components and two to the entire property?
We have a locked gate that will be located off of Smallwood Church Road, and the club it's going to remain private just for club members, so that is also our limited access, but the club will be in charge of scheduling access into the property, so that will limit access to the ranges and the property.
Can you describe if you have some type of event like a hunter safety practical day, or if, as Mr. Frew testified to, if there's a community-based organization that you're having an event for specifically, whether it's the sheriff's department or the junior ROTC folks, how do you plan to control the access to the property? Do you plan to, is that going to be a reservation system so that you can control the numbers?
Yes. See, the club will be in charge of scheduling everything that happens on the property. So if, in fact, we were going to run a hunter safety education program, we would get an idea of how many people would be on the property at one time and limit the access for any practical shooting at all.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, you're aware that trap, skeet, and target shooting are exempt from the Charles County noise ordinance between the hours of dawn and dusk, are you not?
Yes, I am.
In light of that, however, are you planning to have your hours of operation to comply so that you're operating during that exemption time from dawn to dusk?
Yes, we will.
And so then it's my understanding that your hours of operation are going to vary by month, of course, as we deal with dawn and dusk times.
Yes, sir.
Now, we've previously had a discussion, and I'm going to recite what my understanding of the hours of operation are going to be. Ms. Green. And that is the hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., November, December, January, and February. 7 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. in October and March. 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in September, and 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. from April through August. Does that accurately reflect the club's intention?
Yes, sir.
In addition to the operating hours that you plan to abide by, what other factors do you feel are important that's going to help mitigate any noise associated with this use?
Again, we're taking full advantage of the topography of the property. Because of the property itself, we've centrally located the ranges, therefore taking advantage of that topography. And we're going to put the berms in, taking full advantage of the sound going upward. So.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Smith, what I'm about to give to the clerk to mark as applicant's exhibit number 3, which is just a copy of the noise ordinance as well as the sunrise, sunset times that we've obtained from sunrisesunset.com and your proposed opening and closing hours. And I'm just going to show you that and ask you take a look at that. And does that accurately reflect what it is you just testified to?
Yes, that is accurate.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, the exhibit that's just been offered into evidence, if the board would accept that, what that is, the first page is a summary sheet, and then the accompanying pages are simply the sunrise, sunset times for the next 12 months. And the club had reviewed those documents, determined, okay, what's the latest sunrise time, what's the earliest sunset time, and then structured its proposed hours accordingly. So actually, during a lot of those months, you know, they're giving up significant hours of operation in order to comply with the most restrictive times. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions for Mrs. Smith at this time, and I'll turn it to the board for questions for Ms. Smith.
Does the board have any further questions for the witness? No.
So this is, I'm sorry, I have one question for you. So this is open 7 days a week, holidays, all year round, correct?
The range would be closed during hunting season. That's one of the things that we want to make clear. But we are scheduling. We will closely schedule the access to the property. So even though it would be open 7 days a week, it would be monitored, and we would limit the amount of people who access the property.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there's no further questions, I would just move the application, the report in support of the application, the staff report, and the exhibits that were previously submitted into evidence, which I think they actually already are technically as part of the record, but as a procedural matter, I move those into evidence in addition to the evidence we've already submitted today. And with that, I would just offer a summation.
Could I just interject with one more question? Could we get the lights so we can see the map again? As the applicant, I'm just trying to prevent recalling you after others testify. So I'm anticipating some questions that may come, but I'd like to know for my own edification. Your application states that there's some streams on the property, and my staff report indicates that's something I shouldn't worry too much about because your outdoor firing range is quite a distance from it, and that shouldn't be a factor. Could you walk me through that on the map so I can understand exactly why I shouldn't worry about that? Obviously, water issues in this Southern Maryland community are quite a hot button, and I want to make sure that's fully addressed before you guys leave the
Frank,
testimony.
let Jim sit back down. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recall Mr. Erdman because, of course, he's the engineer dealing with this. I guess I would just, as a preliminary matter, indicate to Ms. Johnson that, of course, this is a use application. The applicant's going to have to comply with any, environmental restrictions that are put in place, whether it's the state level, federal level, et cetera. So, and we are willing to comply and will comply with all those regulations. But I will let Mr. Erdman address the specifics of the location of any streams on the property.
Yeah, I just thought it would be smart to get that on the record, give you an opportunity to outline why it may not be a concern, since I can anticipate those questions coming up.
Sure, not a problem. Once again, James Erdman with Venn Dyer Associates. What we have is, I say, it's topography. It does have environmental features on it. We can start in this area here. You can see that there's a stream valley up through this area, and we have, in fact, placed on those what's called resource protection zone. That's a requirement of the Charles County zoning ordinance for the protection of those environmental features. We've also identified preliminarily from mapping some locations of wetlands. You can say they occur in this area. However, what we're utilizing in this area, this is, in fact, the existing access. So it makes sense to utilize that same existing access. When we come here, we have some pockets in here. If you can see, there's right here, there's a small stream, and then over here is a small stream. But as you can see, right here, where we are proposing it, there are no environmental features or streams in that area. We are remote to all of those. As it was indicated, the area, as it related to how they were going to construct the facility, it'll actually be berms on either side. It could, in fact, between grading, excavation, and fill, could be 30 to 40 feet high using the natural topography. So what we have is we actually have this bowl that gets created, of which the shooters then shoot into. So there is no opportunity for anything to go beyond the area where the shot would be captured and get into any of these environmental areas because they're nowhere near where we've centrally located the facility. And we did that consciously. We very well could have put it as close to the road as we could, but this made the best sense. It gets us the furthest away from all of the adjacent properties. And once again, from an access, it utilizes what's already there. Does that answer your question?
I want to thank you for giving us that outline for everyone in the room. That's awesome. Thank you.
Very
and
good.
Just one more follow-up on that. The testimony from the president of your club who just stepped down said that in the operations of your original outdoor range from 1972 or 4 to 2010, did I hear him right that he said there were no complaints? No
I'll let him speak for
complaints,
himself,
no
Mr. Johnson.
incident report, nothing. No complaints?
No incidents, and I'll let
That's a startling claim. I think it's fantastic, but I just wanted to confirm that's what I heard. No complaints.
To the best of my knowledge, I've been president for 5 years and been a member of the club for decades, and I am not aware of any complaints or incidences that we had at the outdoor range.
So that would, in your definition of no complaints, that would include noise problems, safety issues, and what about environmental concerns?
As far as I know, during the operation, there was none of the above.
And that's been closed since 2010?
Correct.
And then there's been some complaints. Obviously, we got this rumor thing or whatever, but would you like to address that issue, this environmental complaints sort of after the fact?
I think I'll step in and just indicate, there's a pending litigation case in Charles County Circuit Court. I mean, obviously, the letter, which I've had the benefit to review briefly on the way in here tonight because it was just provided to us through no fault of staff.
I'm not considering that. As far as I'm concerned, that doesn't exist tonight. Okay. But I'm asking you because I heard no complaints. Mm-hmm. So
right.
Obviously, if we go down in this area, I'm a resident of Charles County 20 years, local business person. there's an environmental complaint about almost anything that you do because of our proximity to the water in this town. So I'd like for you to comment, notwithstanding any litigation, on the environmental record of that facility that operated for 40 years, and should the citizens down there in the southern part of my county be concerned about a potential environmental impact 10 years after you're gone from this facility? What assurances can you offer that that will not be an issue that I should consider tonight?
Well, Mr. Freer, I'll just speak to that and say, testimony by St. Charles Sportsman's Club is they're going to comply with any of the environmental regulations that are necessary. And this, of course, they're a contract purchaser for this property. They don't have a hunting lease like
Sure.
they had with St. Charles.
Well, it says right in your application, and I think even your president testified that. I heard the word current technology for environmental, handling. Mm-hmm. And obviously those environmental regulations are under constant evolution.
Certainly.
So obviously we can't talk about 1972 versus 2014, but who would you view as the applicant as the controlling authority? For example, if I wanted to grant your special use, because just hypothetically as a board member, I think your safety layout and your concern for the neighboring property and your attention to detail on keeping it safe and less impact as possible, and I wanted to grant that, but I wanted to impose a condition that you would get some type of overview or confirmation on the cleanup and accept full responsibility at the jurisdiction of, say, the Maryland Department of Environment. Would that be against your interest, or?
Well, I think at this point, as far as the use, as you're proceeding through the actual site development process, that if Maryland DNR says, in addition to having to comply with this conservation easement, this is a condition that is going to be imposed on the development, then we will have that condition imposed upon us. At this juncture, however, I believe the testimony being willing to comply with whatever the environmental regulations are. Also, they are the landowner. They're going to be the landowner of this property.
Sure.
So they have a vested interest. And, the purpose of this club is outdoor oriented.
Sure.
The conservation of the open space and for the type of use they want to do, and they have a vested interest. And I didn't make this in my opening remarks. There's quite a few members of the club who are here tonight. Probably a lot of them have signed up to speak, and they're going to say they're in favor of this. But each individual is interested in the condition of the property, and that's the mantra of the club, and they're going to do what is necessary to preserve that property.
I suppose my question then to you as the applicant, and I really appreciate the presentation, but as we know as citizens of this state and county, environmental regulations evolve over time. Mm-hmm. So is it your testimony tonight then that your commitment to comply with them will evolve with the regulations? Because in a sense, we don't want to say that we're granting the special use exception tonight and environmental restrictions get deeper 10 years from now, and then you feel that you're grandfathered in at the 2014 environmental standards.
Well,
I would like for your commitment to evolve with the standards.
I understand,
Is that fair?
Johnson.
Yeah.
And I think that the club has no problem evolving. Also, I would just point out, as of course the board is well aware, the county always retains jurisdiction over any applicant who, even if you've approved the use,
Sure.
you maintain jurisdiction, and if there's some type of alleged violation of whether it's a special exception or of the zoning or anything, the county's going to retain jurisdiction to be able to bring this applicant or any other, before the District Court of Maryland.
Yeah. I'd like to thank my fellow board members and our advisor for bearing with me. I'm an above and beyond guy when it comes to this issue, so thanks for indulging my questions.
I do have one question. When we referred to war games and recreation using weapons, can you kind of elaborate on that?
I'd be glad to address that.
Thank you.
As a 4-H instructor and an NRA instructor, I do not teach people to shoot at people. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is a war game, as in paintball and or laser tag. That is not an intention of the club, has never been an intention of the club, and I think if you ask the club members in this room, you'll get 100% agreement.
Thank you. So outside of really that shooting range and the target for the archery range, there won't be any activities within the development outside of those?
Outside of those areas, our intent is to hunt during routine hunting seasons.
Okay.
There's currently a hunt club that is on that property right now and has been there for a decade. So
Thank you.
it's not like we're doing something that hasn't been going on.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Just procedurally, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, were there any more questions for any of my witnesses?
I don't believe so, no.
Just procedurally, I think for the record, to protect my record, I would note the applicant's objection to the admission of the letter that was submitted by Scott Law Group to the county late this afternoon. And I don't know if there's been any ruling if that has, if my understanding was that that's not being considered, but I just want to note my objection for the record.
Okay.
May I continue?
Excuse me?
May I summarize?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Once again, tonight, the evidence has been presented by way of testimony and exhibits, as well as supplemented by the application, the exhibits in support of the application, and the staff report to have this special exception use granted to this roughly 322-acre tract of land. As the board is well aware, this is just a use application, not just use application, but this is the first step in the long road that this applicant has before they can actually use the property for its intended use. The evidence has been presented that shows that the use of the shooting range and archery range are permitted in the RC zone, that the use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, and general welfare, that the use will not be detrimental to the use, peaceful enjoyment, economic value, or development of the surrounding properties or general neighborhood, that the use complies with the requirements for minimum standards for a special exception as set forth in the Charles County Code, especially based on the predominantly undeveloped or low-intensity land uses of the surrounding areas. There's a plan in place. The testimony has been demonstrated by Mr. Frew. There's a plan in place of how to eliminate the danger to people and property from flying projectiles, as well as the safety management plan to govern the procedures for use and safety of the property. Also, there's been testimony from Ms. Smith about the limiting the impact from traffic to the property. We've presented testimony on the noise issue, the fact that this type of use is exempt from the Charles County noise ordinance between the hours of dawn to dusk. They agreed to have their hours of operation to comply with that. Additionally, you have the buffering of, it's a forested property, you have the buffering of the forest, you have the berm that's going to be constructed that's going to channel noise upward, as well as the testimony from Ms. Smith that, during the hunting seasons, which I guess would be primarily the fall, that it's going to be used for hunting. It's not going to be used for target shooting. Additionally, you had Mr. Urban's testimony about how the applicant's going to comply with all the development services permits and all the other permits that are required. And you have Mr. Urban's testimony about how, in his opinion, the use is consistent with the comprehensive plan, as well as a staff report that states that same thing. And for all these reasons, we feel that St. Charles Sportsman has proven their case by preponderance of the evidence, and we request this application be granted.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, at this time we are going to hear from the folks that have signed up. We have about 50 or 60 people signed up, so I again ask that if somebody has already said what you wanted to say or what you think, there's no need to come up and repeat again and again that you're in favor. So what I'm going to do is we want to hear everybody. If you want to speak, by all means come up. I just want to reiterate, if it's been said, you can stay seated and just raise your hand. But I want to just get a quick glimpse here. The folks that are in favor, if you could raise your hand. All right. Those that are opposed? And those that are undecided? Okay. All right. We are going to start here. First name, Sean Murphy. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good.
Thank you.
If I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do, sir.
Name and address for the record, please.
Sean Murphy. Address is 6130 Gale Lane, Indian Head, Maryland. I thank you for the time this evening. I am in direct opposition of this Sportsman's Club due to where I live. A lot of my concerns are due to my child safety, my animal safety, which I know they've already addressed by some measure. My concerns are if they're using automatic weapons. The noise is also a huge concern. Have they done any decibel testing to the range that's going to abut my property? Do they know the exact noise they're going to be emitting from that range with 10 people shooting up to 50 caliber rifles? We also do have a pond and a lake that is directly behind our house on a neighbor's property. We were concerned for the environmental effects of the lead, since we all are probably at least 100% of us from well water. We're worried about the expanded roadway traffic. If you're not familiar, Smallwood Church Road is a single-lane highway divided by a double yellow line. Chickamonkston Road, the main way to access it, which is Maryland Route 224, is also in the same posture of a single lane each way. The traffic does move slowly because of Smallwood State Park, so I can only imagine when they open this up to the public, or if they ever do that for their members 300 at a time, what it would take to get in and out of our house just to go to the grocery store. That is my opposition. Do I have the time to ask a few questions of the applicant?
Typically, do we allow that direct questions or no?
Generally not from public
generally
testimony. The board obviously.
Generally we don't like accept direct questions, but if you have concerns, share them with us, and then we will ask the applicant to
Thank you, sir. I appreciate
speak
it.
on those.
Do they have any intent on making this club public? He said 300 members. I'm also concerned. I guess they're going to open it up to the sheriff's office to use also for, I guess, their qualifications, since they qualified at their indoor range in Waldorf now. I'm also concerned with the traveling rounds. I know that they said they're building berms, but I'm concerned with accidental discharges, someone who's inexperienced, and have they ever had any accidental discharges or accidental deaths at any of the range? And just I'd like to know if there is automatic weapons, and also do any of your members actually live in earshot of the rounds or on Smallwood Church Road, as your engineer has outlined on the map or outlaid on the map there? They don't have to listen to the rounds like we will all day. I think that's the majority of my questions, and I thank the board for their time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kevin Grimes. Good evening.
Good evening.
If I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Can I have your name and address for the record?
Kevin Grimes, P.O. Box 74, La Plata, Maryland, 20646. Well, I grew up right across the street from the entrance to this area here, so I know this area very well. And my brother lives there now. My dad owned it before he passed away. And the landfill now is a park. I wasn't sure if y'all were aware of that. There's a park over there at the Pisgah landfill where kids ride their bikes and everything. And so I think there's a noise issue. Also with Smallwood State Park, the proximity is close. Last thing you want to do is take the family to a park and hear rapid gunfire. But also I'm concerned for the peace and quiet of the neighbors. It's a peaceful area where people are working in their gardens. People have horses in that area. Horses don't like gunfire. So I'm just going to try and be quick. I know a lot of people are going to cover other issues. There's lead contamination. Nowadays when we have these floods, we get 5 inches of rain in one day. You can't promise someone that something like lead is going to stay put in sand. The whole berm could come down for all we know. It could rain for 2 weeks. We've been getting that kind of weather lately, so that's an issue. Also, there's a vernal pool over there with the spotted salamander that I've witnessed hundreds of, if not thousands, of spotted salamanders in the spring. They lay their eggs over there. So amphibians are on global decline due to things like erosion and clearing of land, disturbances, pollutants, things like that. And I think, you take down forests, you put up a roof, it's more impervious surface, and I think that maybe this thing will eventually become larger than what's being stated here today. So I'm really against it, and also I think that it's odd that war games aren't going to happen there, but they were mentioned in the paperwork that was mailed out. So that shouldn't. It just seems strange to me. I don't know if it's something that's going to come up later or what, but so anyway, I'll allow other people a chance to speak. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Brenda Baldwin. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you? If I could swear you in, please.
I'm sorry?
If I could swear you in,
Yes,
please. Yes,
Brenda.
ma'am. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
Brenda Baldwin, 8195 Poorhouse Road. It's La Plata, but I don't live in La Plata. I'm just a little bit down from the old landfill Pisgah store. And I've also lived in Smallwood Estates along that road since 1977, prior to moving 3 years ago. So I do know what all these folks here are concerned about and understand it. And I moved to that area to get away from exactly what is going to happen now down there. They mentioned earlier that the spent munitions will go into sand. Is there a cleanup process? Golf courses come in and clean up the balls at night and take care of their residual entertainment. Is there a plan to keep the earth clean, at least periodically, annually, semi-annually, however, to dispose of this lead?
Mm-hmm.
And I oppose this.
Very good. Okay. Thank you for your time. Mike Story. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
If I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record.
Mike Story, 6095 Gale Lane, Indian Head, Maryland.
Okay.
Which is Rison Acres, which is fairly adjacent to the proposed site. You said you didn't want repeating, and you're going to hear a lot of that, so I think I'll add some bona fides. I spent 20 years in Navy Special Warfare. I am intimately familiar with weapons. After that, I went to diplomatic security, and I ran the demolition and firing range for diplomatic security. The contention that the berms will reduce the noise is somewhat nebulous. We had burns at our ranges in West Virginia, which is where we did our requalifications at Bill Scott Raceways, just west of Winchester. The closest group of houses to that range was just under a half a mile. When we took the agents up there to requal, Bill Scott got continuous complaints because it was rapid fire, anything from large caliber to pistol. And we teach them combat loads, so you're fired as fast as you can, drop your clip, slap another clip in there. The premise of putting a shelter over the shooters is good, but that's for their protection and not from the report that comes out of the end of that barrel. You're still going to get a lot of noise out of there. The premise of putting sand on the berms is a well-known procedure for keeping the lead from defragging and trying to keep it intact. We, Department of State, and every other range I've had that I've been associated with through Spec War community, we clean those ranges every 3 months. and I sifted more lead than I shot downrange. We did that for hours. The reason for that is ground contamination, groundwater contamination. You can't let it sit there. The concern here is all of us within that area, Rison Acres, which there's Gale Lane and Cindy Lane, everybody out there is on a well, as opposed to their previous site where people were on city water. There are only 7 of us that I know of that put in deep wells. Everybody else is on a shallow well, which is 40 to 60 feet. That's where you get your biggest preponderance of groundwater contamination. So there is a noise aspect, and I appreciate everything that they've told you about the range safety is applaudable. That's what you have to do. You control your range. I have been an RSO, and I've been the one flat on the deck when that baby agent turns around with a loaded weapon going, something's misfired. That happens, and an RSO can't stop that. My concern is whether it's pistol or long rifle, and 87% of the people are right-handed, and if you have a long rifle and you have a misfire and you're on target, you go off target. So now you pointed above that burn. The closest house from the corner of this proposed site to Cindy Lane is 1,900 feet. According to that scale down there, I took a pair of dividers and checked it. If we're firing 30-30, and it's going to vary, so I'll give the variables. 30-30, 223, 7.62, 30-06, depending on the load, depending on the type of round, whether it's ball, ballistic, pistol, hollow point, that type of thing. For rifles, you're looking at anything from 800 meters to 1,000 meters of range there. So that's 2,640 feet to 3,000 feet. Those houses and numerous other houses on Small West Church Road are well within that circumference. Pistols, you ought to be fine with those. I don't see any problem there. Shotguns, you're looking, even with a slug, you're looking at 200 yards if you're good. But the long guns are a consideration.
Okay.
So I'm sure a lot of other people are going to have more to say, but there is going to be a noise factor there. I don't see any noise studies. I don't see any groundwater contamination studies, and we don't want to put 10 years down the road say, well, we should have done this. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Marcia Story? Okay. Cynthia Asaminos? Good evening.
Good evening.
If I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Name and address for the record.
Cynthia Asamanos, 6140 Gale Lane, Indian Head, Maryland.
Okay.
My backyard abuts this property. I am so upset. We moved from Laurel 20 years ago. It got too big and it got too loud. So how far do I have to go now? I'm concerned about everything that you've heard, so all I want to ask is, would you want this in your backyard? That's all I want to know. Maybe not you. Maybe I don't want to know what he says. I want to know the rest of you. Would you want this in your backyard? This is about money for them. This is a business. This is our peace. This is our home, and we're asking you to protect that. That's all I want to say. Is just protect our homes, our peace. All right. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. David Kennedy. Good evening. If I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record.
My name is David Kennedy. I live at 6080 Gale Lane, Indian Head, Maryland, which is in Rison Acres. And I agree with everything my neighbors have said thus far. My biggest concern is that there have been no noise studies, and I dare say that anyone in this room can tell me what I'm going to have to listen to from during the daylight hours, that the range is going to be open 7 days a week. And I agree with Cindy. Would anyone here want to have that in their backyard? So I won't belabor the noise piece of it, because I think that's probably most of our concern. I don't want to be woken up at 7 o'clock in the morning by range fire. But the one additional point I would like to make in a quick story, a couple, 3 years ago, I was working on my house doing some power washing, and I looked up as I was doing this, and I noticed about 300 feet above my house was a bald eagle flying. And I started counting. I counted 8 bald eagles flying over Rison Acres. And my wife and I have had the pleasure of witnessing these magnificent creatures in our own very backyard. So I submit this picture as one that my wife took of a bald eagle sitting in our backyard. And my concern is, what is this range and the noise that it's going to produce due to the nesting population of the bald eagles in that area? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Rance Culver. Good evening. Sir, do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
Rance Culver, 6090 Gale Lane, Indian Head, Maryland, also known as Rison Acres. Again, I agree with all of my neighbors and oppose this development, and have a few questions of my own. One being the hours of operation. Again, asking you, would you like this in your backyard? 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Would you like to hear that gunfire continue all day long? Also, the current hunting club that's on that property, we can currently hear the gunfire from that land. So with the firing range, I anticipate that to just be outrageous noise that you're going to hear continuously. One question in regards to this request for special exemption. Under the project request, the last few words in that project request says, or other recreation using weapons. To myself, I question, what does that mean? Also under minimum zoning requirements, item B on there, facility shall be constructed in such a manner as to eliminate all danger to people and property from flying projectiles. And I emphasize all danger. Later down through the document here, on page 3, under staff findings, it says that the staff findings say that part of this is, therefore, this use minimizes activities that are detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, and general welfare, where minimizes doesn't quite meet all. Right? The requirement says all danger, eliminate all danger, where staff finding says minimizes. Also under the under the same section of preliminary findings, item 4, the requirement states that it complies with standards and requirements set forth in Article 13. The applicant states their statement says article number 9. So the document is misleading there. The staff findings then replies that the applicant meets the standard requirements set forth once again in Article 13. All right. There's also some statements down here that says that under staff findings, item 5 will cause no objectionable impact from traffic, noise, type of physical activity, fumes, odors, dust, or glare. Well, staff finding is saying will cause no objectionable impact. Well, objectionable to one person isn't the same as another. And my objection would be primarily of noise, but also the water contamination, possible water contamination, also the lead that's being captured in the sand berms and potentially never reclaimed or removed from the ground. And over time, we all know that lead will break down and it will seep into the groundwater. Eventually, it'll get there. And that's all I have to say at this time.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe it's Carl Peru. Is that correct? It's hard to read the... No? Good evening, sir. So what I will mention is we are obviously getting late into this. We have a lot of people left to go. We want to hear everybody, and so we may get to the point this evening where it's 10 o'clock, 10:30, and they need to shut the building down. So there's a possibility. I think in the past we've had to continue the case so we could hear everybody that wanted to speak.
Mr. Chair, I know that people came out and they want to be heard. I was wondering if anyone would object. I've been keeping very detailed notes of what the citizens have said, and I'd like to read a list of what I captured, and that way we maybe could ask the citizens who've signed up to speak who have something that's not on that list to prioritize their speak, because I'd love to hear what people have to say, but we've got to find a way to cure the redundancy.
Okay.
Does that seem like it makes sense?
Well, we've never done that before.
I hate to continue it because we'd like to hear from everyone, but would it be a violation of anything, Mr. Attorney, if we did that and asked them to come forward if they have something different?
No, I think we can probably hear a few more people and see if we're getting some different concerns. But I think, as the board has noted for the record, what we're interested in is concerns that we haven't heard already. Right. I think we're going to have a lot of folks here that are concerned about the noise and safety concerns.
Sure. And, we haven't heard anybody that's for this yet. I know there are quite a few in the audience, so we definitely want to hear from them as well. So I say we continue.
Many of the people have said, I agree with my neighbors, and we could maybe just ask them to keep that part brief and get to what they have that's different would be awesome, because we want to hear everyone.
Correct. Okay, sir. If I could swear you in.
Sorry.
I'm going to swear you in, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
Name is Carl Eugene Price, 4205 Smallwood Church Road, Indian Head, Maryland, 20640.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
And I live directly across from the property which we're speaking of, where they're thinking of putting the rifle range. My property is directly across the street from it. And I've lived there for 44 years. It's been a very nice neighborhood. It's quiet. And I can imagine what's going to happen if they put a rifle range across the street from where I live. It's going to bring more traffic. It's going to be a lot more noise than it is. The land now is leased to hunters. It is no problem at all. Once in a while you hear a shot or two, but I can imagine what it's going to be like when they put a rifle range over there. Plus, I have 2 horses, which I have in a fenced-in area that borders the property or borders the Smallwood Church Road, and I'm sure that's going to spook the horses. It has happened before from people shooting guns on my property, so I have to watch that, and I oppose having it there. Don't like it at all.
Very good.
That's it.
Thank you, sir. Christine Bowie. Good evening.
Good evening.
If I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Name and address for the record, please.
Christine Bowie, 5730 Big Mill Road, Indian Head, Maryland, 20640.
All right.
Okay, my biggest concern is a lot of the traffic on Smallwood Church Road. Like, this was my father that just spoke, and I'm very concerned about that. And, I mean, I thought they had a shooting range at Myrtle Grove. And, I mean, why come down and disturb the creeks, the wildlife? My dad and I like to walk up through there like in the winter months when there's snow on the ground. And we're actually looking for prints in the snow, and you can find all kinds of prints. Why disturb the wildlife? That's all I have to say.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
William Roby. How are you, sir? I'd like to swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? Name and address for the record.
William Roby, 6085 Gale Lane. My concerns, like everybody else, is the noise. I don't know if y'all go to the Blue Crabs games or not, but the noise that you heard when them guys were shooting over there is what we're going to have to live with. That's how loud it's going to be. And the main concern, too, is the value of our homes. In the last 6 years, my house has dropped $140,000. It can't drop anymore. And that right there, I believe, would destroy it. Nobody, including yourself, members of this club, want to live next to a shooting range. There's no way. If they tell you that, they're lying. I also have concern with the sheriff's department. They're going to be letting them use it, and I feel that's almost an unfair advantage that the county might pick up something, maybe to help their votes go a different way or whatever, because now the county has some place for the sheriffs to shoot. So that's my biggest concern is the noise, the value, like everybody else, the safety. So.
Very good. Thank you. David Riley. Good evening.
Good evening.
If I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, sir.
Name and address for the record, please.
Lieutenant Colonel Dave Riley, 3785 Leonardtown Road, Waldorf, Maryland.
Okay.
Sir, I'm the senior Army instructor for the JROTC program at Thomas Stone, and we've been working with the St. Charles Sportsman's Club for about the last 10, 11 years using their ranges, and they've been great partners with us, and the St. Charles Sportsman's Club is a very strong advocate of safety with all of our cadets, and we have an outstanding relationship with them, and we would look forward to using the new range if it's approved. And that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Rick Nichols. Good evening, sir. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
It's Rick Nichols, 925 Rye Drive, La Plata, Maryland,
Just to hear to let you know that I am a member of the St. Charles Sportsman's Club. I'm the chief firearms instructor for Charles County. We have had a professional relationship with St. Charles Sportsman's Club for 20 years. We use their indoor range for our qualifications. We have our own outdoor range that we use, but we have used their outdoor range for pistol matches, things like that we can't use at our outdoor range. So they've been great supporters of the Charles County Sheriff's Office, and we've never had an issue with them. They are supporters of the community, and I don't believe that they've done anything yet that I've seen to have an issue with the communities around them. I'm not necessarily speaking for the Sheriff's Office, but I am letting you know that we have had the relationship with them, and it's been a fairly decent relationship with no issues yet. So,
okay, very good. Thank you. Buddy Joyner? Pointer. I'm sorry, sir. Good evening. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
Buddy Pointer, 4781 Montaigne Place, La Plata, Maryland.
Okay.
Okay, I'm here to speak for my elderly parents. They have lived in property adjoining this parcel and in Rison Acres now they're directly border it for best parts of 40 years. And I'm speaking, I agree with everyone that's opposed it. I agree with all their comments, but I want to take a little different twist on it, or maybe adding to it, is the humanitarian side. For my parents, 86-year-old dad, 77-year-old mother, living in a log home that my dad built from scratch, bordering this land. They wake up every day looking out the window, enjoying the peace, the quiet, the serenity, the tranquility. And you can imagine how they felt when they saw the paper that came around mentioning the shooting range, the war games, especially for something the size of St. Charles Sportsman's Club. They are scared to death. They're crying, and it's pitiful to talk to them. They are so concerned about it because it does border right up there. I have no difficulty. I have nothing against any member of the St. Charles Sportsman's Club. It's a good organization, but it's people bought in this area for the guidelines and so forth that's set forth by the county government as far as zoning, thinking that was going to be held true, that there wouldn't be commercial type operations going on around them. And it is a very serious thing to, especially not just elderly, but all that's around there. My parents wish to live their remaining years in this log home, in the tranquility that they've experienced through the last decades. And I hope that you all will think about this as well as everything else that's been mentioned before you make your final decision. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just interrupt briefly? I'm just thinking I'll make a suggestion for a matter of procedure. It may be efficient if a number of people are called at one time and they could form a line, and then we would cut down on the delay of everybody having to come up from the audience, as maybe 5 people in an aisle or something, and then one after the other they could come up instead of have to take the time for everybody to have to come down from their seats. Just a suggestion to try to move it along.
Call a handful and have them come up in a line. We'll proceed as we have been going. I think we just ask that you do cut it short, folks, if you don't mind. Thomas Hall. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Name and address for the record, please.
It's Thomas Hall, 12350 Charles Street, La Plata, Maryland, 20646. Thank you for your time. Please bear with some of the redundancy. The reason I will kind of restate some things is you've heard about the hunt club that has the property currently. Well, I'm the vice president of that hunt club. And if anybody knows the topography of that land, it's us. A decade? No, we've been there 14 years. It was stated there was a current driveway. It's a four-wheeler path. So it will have to be widened. Some of the wetland concerns where the current, on the map where they have the current plans that directly overlooks beaver ponds, a larger creek that is not noted on that. They did state there was some other wetland areas. Yes, there is. There's 3 beaver ponds on that land, including the one that is directly behind where they want to locate their range. The entrance currently is shared with Pepco. So if they're going to gate it, somebody else is going to have a lock to it because we share a lock with Pepco to access our property. And also, where that current range is, there's not a flat piece of property, a flat area on this piece of property. It rolls. Where they're proposing putting their range, it actually does roll, and it rolls down. And when you're standing on top of that property, if you look straight through those trees, there is houses behind those trees in Heritage Knolls. So if there's any stray ammo or discharges, it's going straight through those trees right into the backyards of the people in Heritage Knolls. We do not hunt that end of the property for those specific reasons. We stay away from those boundaries because there are people in Heritage Knolls that butt up against the property, and we have concerns about being too close to their property. So, that really needs to be taken into consideration where these stray things go. You read a box of 22 ammo, and it tells you, and this is just a 22 rifle, that this can go 1.5 miles. That not only is Heritage Knolls, that's across the street, that's Smallwood State Park, that's quite a ways. So usually you build on a flat piece of property, this rolls. And again, behind that is quite a large creek and beaver pond. So, you could have some contamination of lead runoff into the water system, around the area. So, my other thing is also, nobody has mentioned the fact that there's actually a historical landmark on this property, Granny Thompson School. It is, if you Google Granny Thompson School, it will GPS it and come right up to that property. So I don't know the effect of that, but I just figured I would bring that up, that, there is a historical landmark on this piece of property. We've been stewards of this property for 14 years and taken great pains to keep this property the way it was designed, in a forestry conservation easement. DNR, if you approve, which I hope not because I do oppose it, if DNR, they have it strictly outlined how it has to be. No improvements, has to stay in forestry. This is not forestry. So, let me see if there was anything else, because I do not want to take up a lot of other people's time. I don't know if maybe some type of environmental study needs to be done by the Army Corps of Engineers with all the wetlands that are on this property. I do know that when it was originally cut down and timbered, that they had to keep 40 feet on each side of all tributaries that were through there. So there's some existing larger timber in there that they could not cut down. So I would think that's about it. Like I said, I don't want to take up a lot of time, and I didn't want to be redundant on anybody else, but I wanted to give some more input of somebody who has had 14 years worth of experience on this property and understand, about this property a little bit more than somebody who comes down the second day of shotgun season and gets you out of your deer stand, so you have to let them in and traipse all through the property and then leave, and then comes down at opening day of turkey season. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I briefly cross-examine this witness?
Sure.
I believe that's my right. Mr. Hall, if this use is approved and St. Charles Sportsman buys this property, are you going to lose your hunting lease on that property?
Oh, obviously.
Okay, thank you.
And can I ask you a question? Or could you ask him a question for me then later on? It's irrelevant. All I did was give you information on the topography and stuff that I didn't say anything other than giving you the outline of the land.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
It's irrelevant about my lease.
All right. All right. Next witness is Alexander, and I cannot read the last name. I apologize. Might have two. All right. Our next, I'm going to call kind of an on deck. William Sanders is next, so if you'd be ready to come down, that'd be great. Good evening, sir. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do. My name is Alex Zion. I live at 4145 Sweetman Road, Marbury, Maryland. I'm a retired Air Force. I'm a retired police officer. I'm a Maryland Police Training Commission certified firearms instructor. I'm also a hunter safety instructor currently. Do you know that the Stump Neck range, they had a skeet range at Stump Neck? You know why it was closed? Lead contamination. So, lead contamination is a problem. You're going to have to deal with it. Obviously, I'm opposed to this. 2 years ago, I found a rifle bullet in my swimming pool. Where did it come from? The wooded area that we're talking about. I mean, where on that area it came from, I don't know. But that's the only way it could have come, because had it come from the other direction, it would have gone through my house. But it came from the backyard, which faces this area, so it came from there. Everybody else has been very articulate and covered all of the areas concerned. I thought you needed to know about the lead contamination that closed the range at Stump Neck, which is less than a half a mile from this property. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. William Sanders. Christina Tomlinson is next. Good evening. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
William Saunders, 14980 Horse Crossing Place, Hughesville, Maryland.
Okay.
I am retired Charles County Sheriff's Office, retired in 2001. I'm currently the firearms instructor since 2002 with the Charles County Sheriff's Office. For the last 12 years, I've worked hand in hand with St. Charles Sportsman's Club. Previously, when they had the range on Piney Church Road, the Sheriff's Office had an agreement with them where we used that range one day a month. And we use it for rifles, shotguns, and primarily our emergency services team, SWAT team. Since we lost the use of that range, we do now currently have a 75-yard outdoor range that we use. We currently use, with the Sportsman's Club's permission, the indoor range that we use for qualifications for handgun. So we would not need the outdoor range, another outdoor range for that. The outdoor range for the rifles and shotguns, we're fine with the facility that we have. Our only problem is a long-distance range for our snipers on the EST team. Currently, we have 75 yards. We use Fort Meade, or we'll go across the bridge into Virginia to use the range down there. So it would be beneficial to us to have this range. But the main thing that I want to convey to you is the relationship that we have with the St. Charles Sportsman's Club. There are programs out there that we work hand in hand with them for the civilian population. Our current range is on state property, so we can't take civilians into it, so we have to depend on the Sportsman's Club for their cooperation. And there is a very good working relationship with the St. Charles Sportsman's Club.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Christina Tomlinson. And Dale Tomlinson is next. Good evening, ma'am. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Can I have your name and address for the record, please?
Christine Tomlinson, 3860 Marvin Drive, Indian Head, Maryland.
Okay.
I agree with everybody about the concerns. I'm opposed to it. I have horses not far from there. Horses do spook on a regular basis from gunfire, and I'm actually training my horses. So that's not going to help me to train my horses. I can guarantee you that. I'm also concerned about the lead getting into the water for even my horses that may drink out of the pond on my property. I'm also concerned about, they said they're using property that the hunters are already using. This is a lot more hunters than what's been using that property for. So you're going to have a whole lot more hunters. Not only that, they're putting up protection for their fire range, but then they're opening it at hunting season. So these protections they're putting for the range isn't going to protect people from gunfire when they're out there hunting on the property everywhere else. These are all concerns of mine.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Dale Tomlinson. And Loretta Joyner is next. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
Dale Tomlinson, 3860 Marvin Drive, Indian Head.
Okay.
Some things that haven't been covered yet is the TDR program was developed in Charles County, and that was to benefit Waldorf and La Plata so that they could have more growth. We were designated as a conservation area to defer growth from, not to have rifle ranges, pistol ranges, car dealerships, blah, 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 blah. This is what we bought into. I don't see any Department of the Environment studies on the wetlands. The roadway that they're alluding to as being there doesn't really exist. It's not capable of handling vehicular traffic at all. So that study would have to be implemented to decide what kind of bridges would have to be constructed. They're making it sound like they're going to open up a gravel pit and shoot there. We don't need a gravel pit. We don't need a shooting range. If they're going to be allowed to do this, there needs to be some kind of mechanical separation between the projectiles emitted from the weapons and the environment. They have to have some kind of way to sift through this stuff and reclaim it. I haven't heard anything from their side even suggesting that they're going to do that. They're just going to shoot into the dirt and monitor the results. That won't do us any good later on. Their track record for that isn't exactly exemplary. While we're looking at the RC designation, right now it's on an agricultural tax base, not a commercial. And the way I understand that, this is going to be a lease from the Heartland Conservation Group, not a purchase. So how is that going to change the tax structure?
I do believe that the applicant is the contract purchaser of the property. Is that correct? Yeah, so it would be, they would own it.
And then we have construction traffic. They're talking about fencing a gate. Well, there's no fence around the property. There's no restriction of access. Currently, I could walk over there, and there's nothing to prevent me from finding every little nook and cranny on there if I want to. So what's a gate and a lock going to do on a road that doesn't exist? And small arms fire, which 22 caliber being some of the most popular stuff, right on the box it has a warning, 1.5 mile range, not 1,000 feet, not 600 feet, not 800 feet. So none of us that are in this area are excluded from the dangers of that. That's pretty much what I have. Oh, would the St. Charles Sportsman's Club be willing to post a bond against any decreased property values that we may incur?
Thank you. Loretta Joyner. Okay. Do I need to swear her into? No. Christina Klein. All right, thank you, ma'am. Jason Campbell. Good evening. If I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Name and address for the record, please.
Jason Campbell, 4400 Smallwood Church Road, Indian Head, Maryland.
Thank you.
I'll be quick. Myself and my fiance, Christiana, back there, we purchased the little triangle worth of land directly connected to the south of this property. You can't see it up there. We purchased that about 7 years ago, and we just finished building our house in December. We finally moved into it. One of the main things we were looking for when we purchased and decided to build was privacy and seclusion and quiet. And we've been really happy with where we've been living so far, and that's going to be a big problem. And you can't see it too well from here, but I got a map here. Someone spoke earlier about the Pisgah Park that's close by, but it's over here. And one time we were working in our front yard, and I heard yelling in our backyard, and there's nothing but woods back there. So I went on Google Maps, looked it up. The only thing back there were those fields. So I can actually hear people cheering from those fields in my yard. And I did the math on it. That's about 3,500 feet from my property. This range is just about 2,500 feet. So if I can hear people cheering for their kids, I can imagine only what gunfire is going to sound like. And most of the reason that all of us commute an hour and a half to our job is because the tranquility and the silence makes it worth doing all of that. And that's why we live where we do. And if I wanted to hear gunshots every day, I could have lived 10 miles from work in D.C. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Michelle Webb.
Sorry?
Oh, no, you're good. Michelle Webb. No? Okay. Ooh. Donna. I don't know your last name, Donna. I apologize. All right. Good evening. Yes, ma'am. If I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Can I have your name and address for the record, please?
Donna Finney-Frock, 7025 Rison Drive, Indian Head, Maryland. I just have one additional question for you to bring up, and that is if there is a gate for security, which is great, where are the cars going to sit that need to go through that gate? The current road is very narrow. There's no shoulders. So if there's 25 people coming to a class or coming to an event, what's going to happen with the people that are trying to get through on that road? And that is the only thing that I have to bring up that hasn't been questioned.
That's very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Ed Burrows. Good evening, sir. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record.
It's Ed Burrows, 13275 Riceville Road. I'm not a member of the Sportsman's Club. I do not live in the neighborhood. I have been a 4-H volunteer for over 10 years, and I am a parent. I have a son that was involved in starting the JROTC rifle program at La Plata High School, and he got wonderful help from the Sportsman's Club in starting that, a very competitive group at the high school. With the 4-H, we have used their range in the past at St. Charles behind the stadium, and until it was closed, and they were always very helpful to us. We had our own coaches on site. They put volunteers with us to
facilitate our needs and to protect their interests. Everything that they could ever do to be involved with our group, they did up and beyond. The thing is, if our young people don't have a spot to shoot somewhere, they'll never learn. And from what I've seen, anytime we have kids that are educated, they're much safer as adults. So,
very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ginger Kismore. Okay, and your husband Mike, I assume?
Yes.
Opposed? Okay. Mark and Cindy Hancock.
I oppose.
Okay. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
If I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Name and address for the record, please.
Mark Hancock, 3910 Cindy Court, Indian Head, Maryland. I've been employed at NSWC Indian Head for 36 years, 25 years. I've been involved in ordinance, and part of that's environmental and permitting. Indian Head does not have a permit to open detonate. Stump Neck does, but Indian Head does not because of the noise considerations. EOD does because of the mission, explosive ordnance, but they're limited by the state on hours and poundage and when they can operate. The point of property, the topographical map really didn't show where the houses are located. If the testimony here, which I'm sure is correct, to the west, which is Rison Acres, is only 1,300 feet away, that's 3 football fields. And you're subjecting people, established families, this reverse encroachment. They were there first. How do they plan outdoor activities? I live in a community also, when every hour at dusk to dawn is subject to the possibility of rapid gunfire in the thousands, not sporadic such as hunting. And the previous range in St. Charles was about 10 times larger, my understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Alex Loyne, I believe. Do that right? No? Kelly Murphy? Good evening. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Can I have your name and address for the record, please?
Kelly Murphy, 6130 Gale Lane.
Okay.
I abut to the range that's coming in, or that is opposing to come in. I'm going to speak as a mother. I have 2 children, a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. We bought this property 7 years ago from my grandfather who had it built. I can sit in my backyard. I don't have to worry about what's going to happen to my son. I don't know if you guys have children, but if he wants to go build a fort in the backyard, now I have to tell him, you got to be careful, don't go this far, don't go that far. There's a pond down for him to go and play in. Many of the people that own this neighborhood have their grandparents owned it prior to, so we all know each other. It's very safe. I have 2 Siberian Huskies. They get loose, they run. It's just a fear now of like hearing gunshots constantly and wondering, like, if my son wants to be out there playing, is he going to get shot? There's nobody to say once it happens, it happens. It's done. There's no taking it back. There's no, oops, sorry. It's just very scary to me. So that's it.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. John Dow. Good evening, sir. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
John Dow, 4835 Smallwood Church Road, Indian Head. I'm a chemical engineer with a degree in environmental biology and 20 years of experience in environmental compliance, including military range environmental compliance. And I question whether a small organization like the Sportsman's Group can really afford to manage a small arms range under the current environmental restrictions. There's two main aspects. First, they have to conform to best management practices involving controlling the leaching of lead particulates from the berms. This usually involves adding chemical adjuvants and grooming the berms, extracting excess lead pellets. And then when the time comes for closure, it's okay to deposit the lead during normal use of the range, but at the time of closure, that becomes a solid waste management unit. The lead exhibits a toxic characteristic, and the property has to be closed to meet environmental compliance regulations. And I don't, from some comments that were being made earlier, it sounds like perhaps that process hasn't been completed for their previous range, and I wonder if they can really afford to do it for this range when the time comes. And that's all I have to say.
Very good. Thank you. Donata Dow. Hello. If I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Can I have your name and address for the record, please?
Donata Dow, 4835 Smallwood Church Road, Indian Head, Maryland. My understanding, the purpose for this exemption is to provide some recreation. I feel that the people in my area have very democratically given this type of recreation. We have a range at Myrtle Grove. We have hunting at Doncaster. We also have hunting at the Chickamuxon Wildlife Refuge, which is under a 10-mile radius. And this is a private club, so we have democratically, you can go there and hunt in Doncaster for free. Also, the people of my area also tolerate a lot of booms. Often these booms are on weekends, and also our house sometimes shakes from the vibration. And these are from real war games going on. I think they come across the river, the vibrations, the shock waves from Quantico, probably from Dahlgren, maybe some of the testing that goes on at Stumpneck. So I think we have given into these type of war games, the noise, the vibrations, more than any other section there in Charles County. And I oppose this, and I agree with everything else said by my neighbors.
Thank you, ma'am. Mildred Willett. Good evening, ma'am. If I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? Can I have your name and address for the record, please?
I'm Mildred Willett. I live at 4855 Smallwood Church Road. I've lived there for 37 years. I strongly oppose this. I am greatly concerned for our neighborhood, our county. Certainly there are other areas in the county that there must be plenty of wooded land that they can find other than being in a residential area. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, I have Joy. I apologize. I don't want to butcher your last name. You are in favor? Yes. Okay. And you're Edward?
Yes, sir. I'll pass on that.
Are you in favor as well?
Yes, I am in favor.
Okay. Ed Smith? Okay. John Smith? Good evening. If I can swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
It is.
Name and address for the record.
My name is John Smith. I live at 4045 Arena Road, Waldorf, Maryland.
Okay.
I wasn't going to testify because I am in favor of this because I'm a 30-year member of the St. Charles Sportsman's Club. But I have heard so many half-truths being told here this evening that it hurts me. I don't know where to start. Almost everyone who's disagreed with this purchase and this environment and this job has told the half-truth, not the whole truth.
Really?
Let the man speak. Go ahead, sir.
Well, for one example, a gentleman who's a hunter there who said that there's a beaver dam on the property. I personally have been on the property with a four-wheeler invited by the property owner to survey the land. There's no beaver dam on that property. There's no wetlands on that property. There's a summertime crossing creek that dries up in the summer. That's not a wetland. And they've been driving four-wheelers across it for 14 years. I'm done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Alan Harper? Good evening. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
Alan Harper, Stone Avenue, Waldorf, Maryland.
Okay.
I'm a member of the St. Charles Sportsman Club for 44 years. Been in law enforcement for over 40 years. And we have very extensive disciplinary action and bylaws govern all our members. For those who are concerned about misbehavior, we have an actual conservation committee in our organization that's been in existence since we've started the club. I've been president for 11 years of those 44 years, and I just want to assure those homeowners that our club is a responsible club. We're also incorporated and bonded and insured. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Charlie Embody. Okay, thank you, sir. All right. Let's see. Lori Malady. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Devin Pulliam. Good evening.
Good evening.
Need to swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Can I have your name and address for the record, please?
Devin Pulliam, 4075 Cabin Place, Indian Head, Maryland. I'd first like to point out that this map does not show the residential properties. I think a tax map better shows the residential properties around this area. Mine being this property right here on the corner of this property. If this shooting range is put in and you're shooting to the north, you're shooting right towards all of these properties. You're shooting towards residential neighborhoods, not only Rison Acres, but Heritage Knolls, the properties on Sweetman Road, and then all of the properties on Smallwood Church Road. According to the definition for this special exemption, the adjacent area shall be predominantly undeveloped. I do not understand how multiple neighborhoods and at least 15 parcels that directly touch this land meets that definition. I'm also concerned with the ownership of this property. According to the tax record, it's owned by a forest land group who specializes in timberland investment. I know this land has been forested before, so I don't know what future plans are for it to be forested again. I mean, if it is, then you're really talking about noise violations and noise pollution within the surrounding neighborhood. So I don't know what the plans are for that, but that is a concern to us as well. Lastly, I'd like to point out that there is a shooting range within 10 miles at Myrtle Grove. That property has over 1,700 acres. That, to me, is undeveloped land. We're talking about 300 acres. That's not even close to this 1,700 that's already available. So I don't understand why something cannot be arranged for them or for the Boy Scouts or the JRTCO to work with the Department of Natural Resources to utilize that range instead. And then just one final thing, the dawn to dusk hours is great, but what about those people who work nights, such as my husband, and he has to sleep during the day, and our property is right there? That's going to be a major concern as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Eric Pulliam. Okay. Okay, I believe that is everyone that has signed up to speak here this evening. No? Am I missing a page here? Carol, possibly?
Jess can come down.
Yeah.
You have something to add.
Hold on. I do have one more page. I apologize in the very back. Sorry to scare everybody. All right. We have got about probably 15 more to go, and I don't think we're going to make it with our time restriction. So, listen, personally, I think that we need to hear everybody speak before we can. Well, we'll discuss that. But my opinion is that we need to hear everybody speak, give everybody a fair shot. We've done it thus far. I'd like to know what the board thinks of that. But any discussion, any idea?
Yeah, well, time is short. Do we have to exit the building at 10?
Well, here's the issue. We have 15 people that need to speak. We have the applicant that needs to respond to quite a few concerns, which I would like to give them the time to address.
Sure.
If I could be heard, and I don't know if this will make any difference, but we've put on our case, and there's been a lot of concerns that are raised. I think that's something that the board can consider in their deliberation. I don't know if there's 15 people left. Obviously, if everybody takes their full 3 minutes, which I think people probably been exceeding their 3 minutes, we might be able to make a proffer, and some of these 15 may be able to move along. I guess from our client's perspective, as is noted in the application, we're a contract purchaser. That means we're subject to a contract. That means that we would, of course, prefer and urge it all possible to have the board consider and make a decision tonight to be able to move that process along. If the board is unable to do that, then we will
That's
have
fair.
to.
Here's what I'll do. I'm going to call out the names of the remaining folks. If you really have something that has not been said, then by all means come up. If you're just for it or against it and you feel like your opinion has been stated, just tell us yea or nay, and we'll go from there. Bill Moore.
I'll speak on his behalf to get a mercy.
I'm afraid not. David Smith.
Give me 3 minutes.
Do you have anything new to say? All right, come on up.
Go down the list.
All right. So we're just getting. All right. 1 second. I guess in the spirit of expedience here, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to call the rest of the names. If you're here, go ahead and line up at the podium, and we're going to try and get this thing wrapped up. So, Mr. Smith, I'm going to ask you to hold tight. 1 second. Kevin Kennedy, Larry Weller, Paul Dominico, Dolores Warder, Walter Coy. Any of those folks still here that would like to speak? All right, please come forward. Okay, in favor. Torres Jose, Emery Grimes, Kimberly Grimes. No. Tyler Grinder, Linda Redding. Yeah, so if you'd like to speak, come forward. If not, then Mario Michelizzi, favor. Mark Grangler, opposed. And Dennis Stepura. Okay, sir. If I could swear you in. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of... Yeah.
My name wasn't Paul.
You can come on up, sir. I believe you're in there. All right, we're going to try this one more time. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do, sir.
Name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is David Smith. I live at 10130 Pope Creek Road in Newburgh, Maryland. I thank you for this opportunity, but one thing that's not been mentioned here tonight is the fact that what is the makeup of our St. Charles membership. I want to assure the homeowners on this proposed property that we're trying to buy and build a range that our makeup in the St. Charles Sportsman's Club is made up of professional people. We have doctors, lawyers, ministers, police officers, retired and active. We have military personnel, retired and active. We have business people in our club that are operating businesses in Charles County. So we're not a bunch of rogues out there. We are professional people, and we will do what is right to make sure that the safety of the range is within the confines of the Charles County regulations. That's all I have to say.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Ma'am, if you could step forward. If I could swear you in. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Dolores Warder. I'm at 6075 Gale Lane in Indian Head, Maryland, 20640.
Okay.
First, I'd like to say that I concur with everybody's concerns. And what I'm going to say, I don't think has been brought up. It's a question that you might want to pose to the applicant. And it's this: how do we follow this exception once you've made a decision? Is it posted online? Is it in the local paper? How do we find out? How do we follow its progression? And secondly, if the board decides to go with the applicant's request, how does the community, and meaning all of us and more, how do we appeal that? And that's all I have to say.
Very good. Good evening.
Good evening.
If I could swear you in, sir. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address, please.
Dennis Tapira, 4075 Heritage Knolls Place, Indian Head, Maryland. I'd just like to bring up a couple points. I was in the Marine Corps, Infantry, Security Forces, and EOD. I'm looking to the future, to the expansion of this. If this is open for commercial property, are we going to have a concrete plant next to it when the next person buys and opens up there? And I wanted to talk a little bit about property values also. I don't think that was brought up enough. When I moved down there, I moved to that property, and when I was looking at properties in the community, I looked at Myrtle Grove, and there were several houses there that I was interested in. And the reason I didn't move there is because there was a shooting range there. from my EOD and infantry experience, you cannot guarantee against mishaps with a range this close to residential property. It's just impossible, even with a berm. And they talked about building a roof over where the shooters are, but Lake Myrtle Grove has baffles, and that's still not safe. So it's as safe as you can get it, but this is way too close to residential areas. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Linda Redding, P.O. Box 784, La Plata, Maryland, 20646.
Oh, here we go. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to find out if there was a projected number of cars per day, if there had been a traffic study, what the square footage of hard impervious surface would be, how the stormwater was going to be managed, the stormwater runoff. There are already people there during these rain events whose driveway culverts are getting overcome. Will they have to subsidize this development? The wetland disturbance, if it's over 5,000 square feet, which is only 50 by 100, I think the Army Corps of Engineers will have to get involved. Will it be expanded? Will it become 2, 3, 4 times as large? I know there was not an intent of war games, but intent always leaves open the door for that exact thing. The loss of property value is not an emotional reaction, it's an economic reality. People who have homes next to firing ranges, particularly when they're operating from dawn to dusk, have a great deal of difficulty selling their homes, if they even can, at a reduced rate. Noise, loud, consistent noise is actually detrimental to health. Now, I know we were told they will monitor. Now, monitoring, I've done that before with scientists. Monitoring means just documenting something. It doesn't mean action. It's not action. Monitoring is just observing. Watershed 101. If you build a bowl does what? A bowl holds water, and then whatever's in there percolates down into the surface water. And I find it dismissive how they refer to the areas low intensity, large lot. As you can see, this is a community of people here. And I think you have a responsibility to provide these people with the same protections as you would any other community, whether you want to call it large lot or low intensity. There are people there who have livestock, not only for their enjoyment, but for sale and sustenance. How will that affect them? The CDC says there is no safe level of lead exposure for children. The people in this area all have wells. No one here can guarantee that that lead will not leach into those wells. And if we monitor them, who's going to make that right? Who is going to clean that water? Who's going to deepen those wells? Will that be at the pockets of the homeowners? The EPA estimates 72,000 metric tons of lead shot and bullets are deposited annually at outdoor shooting ranges. Significant amounts of fine lead particulate occur in soil close to shooting stations. Numerous reports document dissolved lead from shooting ranges entering surface or groundwater and exceeding EPA water quality criteria for aquatic life and drinking water. So now we're back to our shallow wells. This is too big a deal for the people, this community that lives here. And there is no benefit to the people who live in this area. Their old site was 10 times larger. And again, you're expected to provide this community the same level of protection as you would your own. Thank you.
Okay, last speaker here. Good evening, sir. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Alexander Neustatter, 1111 University Boulevard West, Silver Spring, Maryland, 20902. I am one of the owners of the land on the right side on your map, the 250 acres. And I, along with my co-owners, came here to register our strong disapproval of this exception. We do not want it to go forward. We did not intend for this land to remain undeveloped forever. We were hoping when the time is right, it's zoned for low-density housing. That's what we wanted to happen when the time is right. This, in our opinion, destroys our potential property value. Nobody will want to buy a house with rounds popping off the whole day. So again, we strongly oppose. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I thought I tried to put my name on this. What's one more person? I do have some point codes and nothing.
Yes, ma'am.
What's one more?
What's one more? Come on up. No. Okay, ma'am.
3 to 5.
All right, ma'am. If I could swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
Okay, I do have a couple of points. I understand the pros and cons on both sides. I've been sitting there listening. I didn't know anything about this till this evening. I do want to point out that the landfill, the old Pisgah landfill, like they were talking about, yes, it's been made into a park for kids, and it's a very large park now. But I fought for years to get that landfill shut down back in the 80s. And when the county first looked for a new site, they went to there in Waldorf. Waldorf extremely opposed it coming there. We had that landfill there for over 100 years. Okay, the water contamination there comes in from the Stump Neck area, the Indian Head, through that stream that's cutting down through there, and also through the streams that cut through the landfill. If you did a water testing on that area, I'd be surprised at what you didn't find more than what you do find. Okay. Another thing is that if this land was originally given to the conservation group, how are they turning around and leasing it? Are they leasing it, or are they selling it to this group for the
It's a sale.
It's an actual sale.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's going from what the original owner told the county, this is what I want to happen to this land. It's supposed to be wooded conservation area, and now it's going out of that into an actual sale, and no longer would be wood conservation anymore.
Well, it is, yes, ma'am. But there's an allowed use on that property, if so granted.
But who would be the granting? The new owners?
No, this board.
For the wood.
This board, this hearing is in front of this board to grant the use of this operation on this property, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right. There's already one hunting group there, and I understand, I heard they'll be leaving if the other one gets the okay. Why does the second group need this hearing versus the first group that was on the property using it for the same purpose? Is it just because of the
It's yes, ma'am. It's because of the
target area?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
That part? Okay.
Yep.
And my point also on, I don't think any county employee should have been able to give a say. And I have great respect for our sheriff's office, but honestly, if they belong to the sheriff's office, they shouldn't have had a say on this, because it's the people in the community there that it's impacting, and they are paid by that community to protect them. I personally believe they should have their own site, but I think the county should provide it. You know, they should get everything they need. They shouldn't have to depend on a Waldorf shooting club or anybody's shooting club. Our county should provide what our sheriff office needs for their skills and whatever necessary. And whatever else I needed to say, I forgot. So.
All right. Thank you, ma'am, very much. Thank you.
You need to get her name and voting or whatever.
Yeah, I did.
Address?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Back to the applicant.
I thought my neighbor put my name on the list. Can I say something?
I'll tell you what. We're getting down to the end. We have to vote on this thing. We've had a lot of. Mr. Moeller, are you on the list to speak or no?
My affiliate was here with me. He had an emergency. I got stuck in the hayfield, literally stuck in the hayfield with the weather.
Right.
I promise you, this would not be a waste of time. This would be beneficial for both the board and the family, neighbors, and all that, with evidence that prove that what this history of this organization has done and will do for this community.
No. All right. This is what I'm going to do.
You're not in our neighborhood. That's why we don't want it.
Hold on. We got to listen. Mr. Mueller, we'll give you one chance to speak. This is the last speaker, and then we are going to vote on this tonight.
I would like to hear the young person speak.
Okay.
If we're going to hear.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. That's it.
Hold on.
That's it.
Hold on. Listen, here's what we're going to do. Is there anybody else that would like to say anything tonight?
Let's go.
That's it. Let's go.
Yes, let the young one in first. That's a good call. Good evening. How are you?
Hi.
Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm going to swear you in if that's okay.
Okay.
All right. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Can I have your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Autumn Grable. I live on 4185 Sweetman Road, Marbury, Maryland. And I live close, like really, really close to where they want to build the shooting range. And my animals get really scared from all the bombs that are being tested near Indian Head. And if there were any shooting noises, then they would get really scared. I have 2 emus and 2 alpacas and dogs and cats. And they would start running around and acting crazy because it would be too loud. And then and if they ever got out, they would like run into the fence. And if they ever got out, they would probably run right up to the shooting range, and then something could happen.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. All right, here we go. Good evening.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You are welcome. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Name and address, please.
My name is Colin Moeller. Address 6560 Six Sons Farm Place, La Plata, Maryland. Born and raised, probably about 1,600 yards from the old range on Piney Church Road. Been there for 40 years. Never had a single problem. I've hunted adjacent to this property. But to a lot of the landowners around this property, and to you board members, just to let you know, one of the only freshwater streams in Charles County is right there on 48. That freshwater stream runs directly underneath and around the old shooting range. Tested annually, always by the county. I drink that water still. I use that water for my Little League teams. Never had a lead problem, never has been a lead problem. It's 40 years. Granted, I've hunted around this property all my life, born and raised. Never had an issue. I'm affiliated. I'm also a founder and member of Young Guns Hunt Club. I'm vice president Southern Maryland Wild Turkey Federation. I'm a volunteer and archery instructor for the Charles County 4-H and for the Girl Scouts of the Southern Maryland nation's capital. This organization is not about just hunting. I mean, a lot of these people understand the war games, the whole 9 yards. I can nitpick everything here, but this organization is not about a shooting range. It's not about just war games and blah, blah, blah. This is an organization that's given to this community over and over and over again. We have done multiple youth organizations. Perfect example, and just to make this real short and sweet, we got a young girl who's still an air rifle instructor for us with a lot of our youth programs. back in the day, joined the shooting program through the 4-H and everything else, ended up getting a full ride scholarship to college, was on the Junior Olympic team, and she still contributes to the community today by using her talent. Perfect example, my own personal family, my nephew. Just died hard, dyslexia, had issues, the whole 9 yards, got into the shooting programs, tutelage of Frank Fruit and stuff like that. Now he's a paid EMT and paid firefighter for Charles County, just paying it back. This organization is not about war games and just, again, for the neighbor's sake and this and that. St. Charles Sportsman's Club has been there in St. Charles for 40 years. Well, I'll tell you what, I will have St. Charles Sportsman's Club tomorrow. I have 5,800 homes coming in my backyard right now. So people around here need to understand that you've got a beautiful place. Do you want to conserve it or do you want to lose it? There's 5,800 homes coming in my backyard. This land and this neighborhood and this community we live in is developing. It really is. This organization has proven themselves over and over and over again. They're about the community. They're going to do everything under the sun to preserve the community. They're not going to be running through the woods playing war games. They're looking for a place to develop and enhance the environment and the nature that we've all grown up with in this county. And they're not looking to take over a neighborhood, they're looking to preserve it.
Okay.
So trying to make it short and sweet, and I got 3 pages here, but I just want you to understand that they've got a proven history. And they've done it their entire time. There's no reason to doubt them because they've proved it. For the community and everything else, again, I'm trying not to ramble here, but I just want you to understand that there's a proven fact to this organization here. Somebody needs to stop and really look at what they've already done for this community. There's thousands of kids they've helped. There's thousands of other organizations they've helped, and they continue to do it. They're my biggest support that we have in every youth program in this county.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Muller. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony.
I'm sorry, ma'am. We need to move on. We're going to run out of time.
This is not about the applicants. This is about the environment and also the economics.
Ma'am, you already had your time to speak. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. The applicant can now speak.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm not going to call Mr. Frew back to rebut testimony that's been presented. I think we will stand on the testimony that we've presented. The board can consider the testimony that has been given both in favor and opposition to the application, but I will just have a couple closing remarks. First, if St. Charles Sportsman went to closing tomorrow on this property as a contract purchaser, they could use it as hunting property. That whole club could go out there and they could use it as a hunt club just like the existing hunt club is doing under lease with the existing owner. So what we're here for, of course, is the permission of this board to approve the use that is in the zoning ordinance to have a shooting range and archery range. Just for my record, I'm going to give Mr. Claggett a case site. It's People's Counsel for Baltimore County et al. Versus Loyola College in Maryland. It's a Court of Appeals case. Site is 406 Maryland 54. It's a 2008 case. And in that case, the Court of Appeals, which you all are aware is Maryland's highest court, looked at the standards for special exceptions, kind of went through the whole history of special exceptions. The pertinent part is you get to the end of the opinion, and I'm going to just read into the record. The Court of Appeals says, as noted previously and frequently, a special exception is a valid zoning mechanism that delegates to an administrative board a limited authority to permit enumerated uses which the legislative body has determined can, prima facie, properly be allowed in a specified use district, absent any fact or circumstance in a particular case which would change this presumptive finding. So there's a presumption that the use is permitted and is acceptable in the RC zone, and that's been determined by the legislature. The opinion goes on to read, the local legislature, when it determines to adopt or amend the text of a zoning ordinance with regard to designating various uses as allowed only by special exception in various zones, which is the case here, considers in a generic sense that certain adverse effects, at least in type, potentially associated with inherent to, if you will, these uses are likely to occur wherever in a particular zone they may be located. In the instant case, there's some adverse effects inherently associated with having a shooting range. However, the zoning ordinance still allows for that shooting range to exist not only in this RC zone, but in a number of other zones as set forth in the staff report. The opinion goes on to say, in that sense, the local legislature puts on its sorting hat, that's in parentheses, and separates permitted uses, special exceptions, and all other uses. That is why the uses are designated special exception uses and not permitted uses. The inherent effects notwithstanding, the legislative determination necessarily is that the uses conceptually are compatible in the particular zone with otherwise permitted uses and with surrounding zones and uses already in place, provided that a given location, adduced evidence does not convince the body to whom the power to grant or deny individual applications is given that actual incompatibility would occur. That is the legal standard, and that is what we have before the board. There's been a lot of opinions given. That is testimony, and that's for the board to consider. But I would submit that because someone says, well, we don't like it, that doesn't rise to the level of preponderance of the evidence that would refute the presumption not only of the zoning ordinance but of the testimony that's been presented of the application. I would also add that we are not changing the zoning of the property. The property is going to remain RC zone. This is just a use that's permitted within the RC zone. And I can completely appreciate people who are in opposition if you move to a particular location and it happens to be next to a farm. You say, well, I moved here because there's a farm here. In the future, maybe that farm's sold and you get a subdivision that goes in there. And you say, well, I didn't know they were going to sell that farm for a subdivision. But most of us, including myself, don't go look at the zoning ordinance to say, oh, well, it's possible that a subdivision could go in this zone. I just say, oh, there's a farm there next door. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll submit on the record.
Okay. All right, do we have any discussion among the board?
I would only note, we're coming up on 11 o'clock. The building will shut down at 11 o'clock. If the board is going to engage in prolonged discussion, I would recommend continuing the case. Whether or not you want to keep the record open, be your decision. But
I'd like some advice from you.
We don't have time for a recess.
We can have a recess, just not tonight. We don't have time tonight. What we can do is we can end the hearing tonight. We can continue the case until the board meets next, and at the beginning of that session, we can meet in closed session for legal advice.
And is it within our purview to direct the staff to conduct additional Q&A for us in addition to their existing report?
The hearing's open. If you have questions for the staff, you can still ask those questions.
I just don't know that I'm going to be ready with the formulation of those questions in the next 6 minutes, so I guess we're going to continue the case. Yeah. Now, I'm certainly not prepared to move forward on a motion to pass tonight, so I'd recommend to the chair that we continue the case in the best interest of open consideration.
And now I need to ask the applicant again. I know you're under a timeline.
We'll have to defer to the board, and if there's no decision tonight, then we will have to take the appropriate measures.
I agree with you. I need some time, just a little bit of time to formulate some questions and thoughts, and so I would be for a continuation if the applicant was acceptable to that.
Can I seek clarification though? In other words, the public hearing was held tonight, notice was for tonight. Obviously, there's going to be continued notice that the public hearing is continued to the next meeting, which I'm presuming will be in 2 weeks. Is that accurate?
I'd ask Madam Clerk what our schedule looks like.
It would be June 10th.
Okay. In that regard, would people will be able to show up at the next hearing and submit additional evidence, or is the evidentiary portion closed and it simply would be for discussion and questions from the board?
I would think that it would be closed and it would just be for a board discussion.
Again, it would be up to the board. The board can keep the record open. If you wanted to receive written testimony, you could open up the record again at the next hearing. You have a range of options.
Sure.
The applicant obviously would propose that the evidentiary portion of the meeting be closed as of tonight.
Okay. I'd be okay with that.
I would move that we close the public comments, but we leave the possibility for additional written submissions up to the date of our next hearing.
From the public?
From the public. I see no reason to shut anyone out. If anyone has new information or concerns, we'd certainly like to hear about it before we have to deliberate.
But there will be no more public comment.
No more public comments live, but we would welcome written materials between now and our next hearing.
Okay.
Can we have it?
So we have that written stuff actually goes in the records.
It does.
And not just
We get it.
somewhere.
No, it goes in the file.
Yeah, and I would suggest that you probably want to close the record a little earlier so that all the testimony can be compiled by staff and
good. So the next meeting is June 10th.
Sent to you all in time.
June 5th, we'll close the record, Carol?
Is that enough time?
Okay, we'll close the record June 5th. If you have any written testimony you'd like to send in, it has to be in by June 5th.
You close the business.
Yep, close business day on June 5th. Okay, we need to continue the case. Do I have a motion to continue till, what is the date, Carol?
June 10th.
June 10th.
I'll make that motion.
I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see everybody again on the 10th. Hold on. We're still in session. I have other business I need to take care of this evening. Do you want to push off the approving the minutes, Carol? All right.
You can if you want.
Okay. I have minutes to be approved for February 11th, 2014. Do I have a motion to approve?
We have to do it.
Approve.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I haven't actually seen the minutes.
For which
It is for February 11th.
I haven't seen those revised minutes. I'd ask.
Haven't seen them. We asked for a revision. Did we get that?
We did that.
I haven't seen them.
Neither have I.
So I think we need to move that to the next meeting.
All right, we will move that to the next meeting. So
we can sign the order. We can just approve the minutes later, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Is the order drafted?
The order's drafted, yes.
All right, so we're going to adjourn. Correct?
We'll sign the order, but we're going to postpone the approval of the minutes. Is that right?
That's
Okay,
correct.
but we still have minutes for April 8th. Or
I'm happy to move to approve the minutes from April 8th. I have reviewed those.
Okay.
I saw those as well. I approve those. Yeah.
All in favor?